you bring something so unique to the table that nobody else has.
Yeah.
And by you conforming to the trends that are happening, whether that's with colors, fonts, just solely posting the funny reels because you don't want to show your authentic self, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yes.
Because you're
100%.
not relating to anyone at that
Yes,
point.
100%. We're Sahara and Michaela, co-founders of Refine Marketing.
From corporate 9-to-5s to building and scaling multiple million-dollar companies in less than 5 years, we're not afraid to get into the nitty-gritty.
Giving you a raw and real look at what it takes to build and sustain a business.
This is Rise and Refine.
Good morning.
Good morning, y'all. We've got our coffees, and I washed my hair last night with Maeve's baby shampoo. She's 3, and it was revolutionary. My hair feels like butter.
Michaela instantly orders it on Amazon. But happy Monday.
Happy
Welcome
Monday.
back
Yes.
to the Rise and Refine podcast. Can't forget to say that.
I know. That's why you're here. That's who you're listening to. But yeah, we're super excited to dive into a topic that we actually get asked a lot on Refine Marketing's Instagram, which is our brand and web design company that we have. That's our main focus. That's our main energy. But yeah, it's the 5 branding mistakes we most often see businesses make.
I feel like it's a really helpful topic too, because maybe you're doing some of these things and we can like call you out nicely and you can work on it. That's what we're here for, is talking about that raw stuff that we see in those mistakes that people make.
All right, yeah. So the 5 branding mistakes, and I feel like these 5 that we have specifically chosen they're not rocket science. It's not breaking the bank. I'm sure you've heard them sporadically before, whether you've been listening to us for a while, maybe you have been just trying to dive into the area of brand and web design. But they are very important with how they work together to help build your business if they're done right. But if they're done wrong, they can really hinder your voice, your target audience, who you're appealing to, and overall your growth in your business.
Yeah. And it's not like we're saying these are like hardcore work for every business or mistakes for every business. It's just what we've seen being in the branding and marketing world and what's worked for our companies and kind of what we've learned too. So number 1 is always my favorite, but I feel like it's the easiest, but it's the hardest because I feel like it's an easy concept, but for some reason people can't stick to it.
I feel like it's very easy once you actually understand your brand, but if you do not, and you don't have a firm foundation, a strategy behind it, then this is where this one really plays a role.
Yes.
And it is inconsistent branding across many platforms. So that's social media, that's email marketing, that's website.
Let's dive into what we mean with inconsistent branding too, so people understand. I mean, you've got colors, you've got fonts, you have like, what else would you say?
Colors, fonts, patterns, even like your brand messaging, the tone of your voice,
What logos
how
you
you're
use.
speaking.
I see some people change up their logos like a lot.
That's a big no-no.
Yes, like a different logo per different graphic. You know,
Yeah.
it's like it's all over the place.
Yeah, and so
one day they're hot pink and the next day they're green and then the next day it's black and white and it's
those are drastic. Yeah, I mean, you're definitely going to have when you have a legitimate visual identity, a brand kit, right? You have a color palette, and within that you have a variety of different colors.
Yes.
We typically do between 6 to 8 colors within a color palette for our clients. And you're going to ebb and flow in between those different colors based off of background color, body copy color. So which is like your actual copy, like the small copy that's within a text paragraph pretty much.
Yes.
And so you're going to have different color combinations based off of your brand kit. But if you receive professional branding, you want to make sure that you stick to what's been created for you, because it has been designed intentionally and strategically with your brand in mind, with your strategy in mind, with your goals in mind,
with your
for
messaging,
growth.
with your business and everything. And you don't even have to have like professional branding to follow this mistake that businesses make. You can go create your own color palette.
Yep.
Something may be coming soon to help you with that.
Yes.
For those who don't want like custom branding. But the key is to really make sure that you stick to it. Now, with color specifically, and I want to make sure we don't forget to mention this because I see this mistake a lot, is just a little tip for you all. You have to understand the hex code, because what I see is people don't know you can type in a code like into Canva or Adobe and stuff. And so they try to match the blue or they try to match the green, but then it ends up being a little off every single time. So you want to make sure you stick to that very specific color, because trying to match it consistently and forgetting can really mess it up.
That's good.
It can't, we're not just saying if your color is blue, stick with blues. We're saying if your color is blue, color combination 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, stick with color blue, color combination 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, that's a good tip. That's actually a really good tip. And yeah, within Canva, if you're actually in Canva, I mean, if you're in Adobe Illustrator or an Adobe program in and of itself, you probably already know this. So we'll just stick to Canva, but you can go press the little circle color at the top left of their banner at the top there, and you can click that. You can literally type in the hex code. And what that means is it's a 6-digit code. So it can be like F12BT7.
I wonder what color that is.
I have no idea. But that you type that code in, and then that color will automatically populate for you to click on, and then it matches your color palette, or that color within your color palette.
Yeah.
And so that's how you can really stay consistent with using your color palette across multiple different maybe digital marketing platforms like Canva.
And in Canva too, they have brand kits. So once you choose that color and all your colors, you can save them to the brand kit so that you always make sure that you use it going on every single graphic. More tips on that coming soon.
Yeah, very much.
I just want to make sure I talk about that. And I know like some people are probably like, gosh, they're making such a big deal out of colors. Well, let's just talk about that. Let's prove everybody wrong and why colors make a huge difference. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. When you think of Victoria's Secret, what do you think of? What color?
Pink.
Okay. Obviously, when people think of our brand, they think of
orange.
Yes. If you think about the ways that minds work, like some people remember names, some people remember pictures and people, and some people remember colors to things. And so it's a form of marketing, and it's a form of getting your name out there and being recognized by a color. And so it's very important. It's not just colors. It's so, so, so important to have a color that people relate to back to you, or a series of colors.
Right. And I mean, different colors evoke different emotions, and we're not going to get into all of that today. But with that being said, when you are choosing a color palette, choose what kind of emotion you're trying to evoke, or maybe if it's don't just choose something that relates to you.
Yes.
So the whole reason why we chose orange was because, one, our market brand with branding and web design, our initial company with Refined, it's a very saturated market. And when we were doing research for how we wanted to brand ourselves in an area that was so very saturated, we didn't want to go neutrals because that was everywhere.
Yes.
We didn't want to go blues because that was everywhere. And so we originally started with like maybe some pinks, but that didn't really feel like us at the time. And so I kind of pulled orange just out of the back pocket, and I was like, this is a color that we both don't necessarily get drawn to.
I definitely never thought of it
at the beginning.
Yes.
But now it's our entire personality.
Yeah.
It's our entire brand.
Yes.
And the spunkiness, the brightness, the kind of just like cheerfulness.
It's very vibey and very powerful because it's so bright and bold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is truly what we want Refined to be about. It's a piece of Refined. And so when you choose a color palette, make sure you're kind of thinking through what you want your brand to be, who you want your brand to touch, what kind of feelings do you want your brand to evoke, because that will all play a role. And I mean, Canva has a variety of different tools set within it, where they have, color palettes that are already created for you so that you can go in and maybe start
Yeah.
with one,
You
maybe
could go
play
to
around with
Pinterest
it.
and find some inspo.
Pinterest. I would just
Yeah.
say make sure that when you are creating a color palette that you make sure that you have the right contrast within your
I was
color
just
palette
about to bring that
so that
up.
you are ADA compliant
Yeah.
and visually when you're actually creating graphics, you can see your body copy text on a background.
Yes.
Because that's one of the biggest things that we see when it comes to inconsistent branding is there's a lack of contrast. So it's really hard to read what you actually put on
Yeah.
your graphics.
And we're going to talk about, and with branding too, the same thing with fonts. We're talking here about 5 branding mistakes we see businesses make. Well, one of the branding mistakes I personally made with Embry Group's second logo was the font was so thin. I had a hard time with print and getting it to show up on things. And it made such a huge difference.
Yeah.
So just like colors and fonts, you have to have dark colors in your branding. We're not saying they have to be your main colors, like your primary colors, but you do need them because you never know what graphic you're going to create and when you need it to show up, and you don't want things to be unrecognizable
Yes.
and not able to read.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point with fonts specifically. You want it to be scalable, right?
Yes.
And so when you are choosing fonts for your brand, if you're not and again, this is all if you you don't have the money to invest into a brand designer at that time.
Yes.
These are just tips of the trade from us to you,
Yes.
free of charge, here to your
You're
first.
welcome.
So when you are choosing fonts, make sure they're scalable. And what I mean by that is, you type it out on your computer, you type it out in Canva, Adobe Illustrator, whatever your editing software is that you're using, right? You type it out, you make it really, really big across the screen, and then you scale it down to 50%. Can you still read it?
Yeah.
Scale it down to 25% less than that. So now you're at 75% from your original. Can you still read it then?
And probably put it on a couple different color backgrounds too, right?
Yes, exactly. So you want to make sure that whatever fonts you're choosing, they are readable
Yes.
at that 100%, but they're also scalable to where if they need to be scaled down to fit in different logo iterations
Yeah.
or whatever it might be, text from digital to actual print materials, you can
Yes.
still read it.
You have to kind of do your branding, I would say, a little bit different when you're new because people don't know who you are yet and your name. So if you have a logo that you can't read, even though it might be a really cool font to you, like you may want to think about not what you love, but what's going to gain people coming to you.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we forget that because we choose what we want, not what the general population is going to see and want to come to.
Yeah, that's a good
So,
point. Especially with script fonts too.
Yes.
Be very, very careful with script
Cursive,
fonts,
yeah.
cursive fonts. They're very pretty. We see a lot of photographers use them, but you have to, again, make sure that it's done right and well
Yeah.
for that scalability
Yes.
piece.
Just something else I want to point out too with inconsistent branding, like some really small tips to give you guys some details. Like we talked about colors, we talked about fonts, but I think what's relevant is also having a similar username across all platforms and making sure you have a similar bio, similar maybe even cover photo. Like you keep it very consistent. So like if I go to our TikTok or then I go to our Instagram, it doesn't look like I'm looking at 2 different companies.
No.
So you want to keep it consistent between all platforms as well in terms of the brand itself
Yeah.
and the brand message.
Yeah, and I think that flows into actually our second point that we talk about with
Yeah.
seeing mistakes from businesses is the inconsistent brand messaging or voice, because it is so easy to write from different, or if you have multiple people running your business, or maybe it's you and then you have your social media manager, the way that you two speak is going to be very different. And so
Yes.
you want to make sure that you pinpoint your brand voice and the messaging
Yeah.
behind your brand.
That's a good one. I think I'm going through that and learning that right now.
Really?
Like hiring 2 new marketing people. It's like when they're new and you're training and you're hiring out too, for all of you who have more than just you, it's you got to teach people how to speak like your business, which is kind of challenging.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking through that now. You have, I don't know. What would you say? How would you teach that and keep it consistent?
I mean, we don't have anybody, and this is one where I was struggling with how to talk about it, because this is one where we don't have somebody for Refine that's running our social media,
Yeah.
right? It's all still me. It's all still living in my head. And Sahara and I were just at dinner last night. We were talking about how difficult it is to share the thoughts that are in your head that you have really no control over when they come, and how to voice that to somebody who is not you,
Yeah,
who isn't
it's
bought
hard.
into the company like you are, because they're not the owner of the
Yeah.
company. And so I think this is where, and I'm going to shout out all of our copywriters, like this is where I think it does pay when you do get to that scalability point to invest in somebody who can really hone in with you on your brand messaging and your brand
So are you
voice.
saying I need a copywriter for Embry Group?
Yes, I am. And I
Send me
think
your
I think it's getting to the point now where we are also
Yeah.
going to start needing in 2025 a copywriter
Yeah.
that we can rely on consistently, because we're getting to a point where I can't do it all. Like I
Yeah.
can't keep up with our email marketing. I can't keep
Yeah.
up with our social media. I can't keep up with updating website copy.
Yeah.
And having somebody that we can rely on who has done or gone through our business with a fine tooth comb, knows how I speak. That's literally what their job is to understand how you speak, your brand values, your brand voice, and craft intentionally
Yeah.
the messaging behind your brand. I think that's so invaluable. And you can have the prettiest site, you can have the prettiest brand ever, but if your messaging is inconsistent, there's no point.
Yeah. It's like what
Like
we
you've
said
lost the whole
earlier,
market.
where some people are going to relate to colors more. Some people are going to relate to fonts more. Some people are going to relate to words more.
Yeah.
And it is very important. That's actually where probably my weakness
Yeah.
is the word part. Like I'm very visual, but with images and not with words.
Yeah.
Like that is my weakness. So, but it is very important to have, like you said, very similar messaging and brand voice and keep it consistent, because that will help you stand out.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so next is trying to be everywhere and overcomplicating things. Overthinking things.
Overthinking things, overcomplicating things. I feel like so many times, we even fell into this there for a hot minute of saying, oh, well, we're a brand designer. We need to be on Instagram. We need to be on TikTok. We need to be on Facebook. We need to be here. We need to be there.
Yeah.
When we just needed to focus on one social media platform,
To start with.
do it right, do it well, do it consistently, learn how to get disciplined in it.
Yeah.
And then from there, once we are equipped and have a better understanding of how to do that, then we can add on additional social platforms.
Yeah.
But so often you kind of see just businesses half-ass their Instagram, their Facebook.
Yeah, it's like they'll be really consistent posting on Facebook one week, and then they'll be like, oh, I didn't get any results. I'm going to go to Instagram now. And then they'll go email marketing. And it's like they don't even give it time,
Yes.
which I'm like, either go all in on everything and really time block or hire out help, because I was not able to go all in on everything till I had lots of help.
Right.
Or choose one and stick with it and be consistent, because you can't expect to post all in one place and then get results for a week and then give up on it. And I
No.
see a lot of people do that.
Yeah. And social media is a long game. Like it's not
Yeah.
an instantaneous thing. I know we've said this many times now, but like we started our Instagram account in June, at the end of June, beginning of July of 2023.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a brand new account, fresh, 0 post, 0 followers, like straight brand new Instagram account.
Little baby.
And from that point, we knew we wanted social media to be a lead gen source, but we didn't have any leads. So
Yeah.
we had to begin to create content, post consistently. And it took us 5 months to even get our first social media
Yeah.
lead.
Yeah.
And we didn't even sign that client.
Yeah.
And so I think that it proves to say like social media takes time, it takes
Yes.
consistency, and it takes the discipline. But once you get there, it does pay off.
It does. It does. But the consistency is very, 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 very important. And consistency takes a lot of work.
It does.
It's exhausting always having to think of content and always having to post of content. It does pay off, but you have to be willing to put in the work. And I feel like there's a lot of businesses too who still look down upon on social media. Like sometimes Embry Group, we still get comments and judgments. Like we got one the other day. And if I knew your username, I'd call you out. But we had one the other day where we posted like a fun little like YouTube short.
Yeah.
And somebody commented is like, y'all should get real jobs. And I'm like, I just deleted it, but it made me so angry because I'm like, I don't normally let comments make me angry. Actually, YouTube, just saying, is the most unhinged over TikTok.
YouTube is
aggressive.
Ruthless because
More
people
than TikTok.
hide. Yeah, because you can actually see their profile, or like you see your profile on Instagram or TikTok.
Yeah.
On YouTube, I feel like
It's
people
so-
just hide.
Yeah, they do hide.
It's just trolls on
It
YouTube.
is trolls. But anyways, I was sitting there thinking like, there are so many people who still like think it's funny that marketing now, they don't consider it real, is, you know, doing funny TikToks, doing funny YouTube shorts, dancing, like doing these fun things. Like we're doing it because it's getting us seen by lots of people, and people like the relatable, fun side of us being, you know, professionals, like knowing we're human.
Right.
And it's marketing. It is, let me say that again. It is marketing. So if you're nervous to get comments like that, guess what? We have. Who cares? It is marketing. At least you're doing something and you're getting, because that YouTube short had 8,000 views. So it's called marketing, sir. Whatever username is. But so going back to trying to be everywhere and overcomplicating things, where would
Yeah.
you say is like a good tip for people to start?
Well, I think you just need to start and figure out which social media platform is going to be best suited for you.
Yeah.
Like Instagram is more of a long game. I
Yeah.
mean, it takes time. It takes understanding the algorithm, making pretty swift changes. You know, you have many different forms of content on Instagram. You have your reels, you have your static posts, you have your carousels. And then you have your captions, and captions are meant to add value on
Yeah.
Instagram. Whereas with TikTok, you know, captions don't really play a huge role. It's more so of the quality of content. You can be a little bit more relaxed on TikTok, a little bit more fun, laid back. And then the captions are a lot shorter, much more simple. It's easier to go viral, I would say, on TikTok than it is on Instagram, at least
Yeah.
in my experience. But with that
It's
being
more trendy.
yeah. But with that being said, you just have to figure out like what works best for you, what you want to put your time into. And if you only have time for one, I would personally recommend Instagram.
Instagram to me is literally like your digital resume. And that's what I love about it, because it can attract more, in my opinion, call to actions.
Yeah, very true.
Choose the one you can be most consistent with.
Yeah.
That's the easiest answer. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about with like branding mistakes we see too is people, I want to really just touch quickly on overthinking, because there's a lot of people who overthink content. They'll be like, they'll watch it 10 times and they won't post it. We've talked about this a ton in previous episodes, but don't overthink things, and just roll them out, go with it, and adjust from there. But do not overthink it, or you'll never actually post.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one is prioritizing trends over brand authenticity.
So this one hits close to home for me, because I feel like trends are very, and when we say trends, it's the trending audio, it's the voiceovers, it's the funnies.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a really good balance to have within your business on social media specifically.
Yeah.
And even within your branding, in and of itself, when it comes to showcasing your work, maybe posting a reel, posting a carousel, doing stories, whatever it might be. However, people want to know you.
Yes.
People buy from people they trust.
Yes.
And if you are constantly just posting the funnies, nobody's actually going to get to know the real you, the authentic person behind the screen, and that you are a real business.
Yeah.
There really is a human that's working their butt off to make all this happen. And so I think that there's a good mix that needs
Like a
to
balance.
be had, a balance
Yeah.
between the trending and then the authentic, real content.
I agree 100%. I think sometimes, like, especially the Embry group, like sometimes we'll just only be doing funny. And I told the girls, I'm like, no, you got to mix it up. I like the funny trends sometimes because they're fun to do and hop on, and it does get a lot of views. But I really, really always love original content.
Yes.
That is like us. And I'm always going to be the biggest fan of it. It is so much harder. It is so much more draining, and it's to constantly think of, and it takes more work. However, I just really appreciate original content. And I think the same with branding, colors, and fonts. I see a lot of people just choose things they see that are trending.
Yeah.
You really have to dig into who you are and what you want long term, not just what's trending right now.
Right, exactly. And sometimes, I mean, right now it's getting to the point where everything is kind of mushing into the same aesthetic.
Yeah.
And you see the neutrals, you see the burgundies, the browns right now because we're in fall or winter, and you start to see the serif fonts, which have the little feet on the top and bottom of the letters paired with just a very very basic like Montserrat sans serif font
Yeah.
for the body copy. And you start to see all of these little things that people are morphing into when it's really not them.
No.
It pays to be different. It pays to be colorful. It pays to be unique and to show the spunkiness that you are, because ultimately your business is unlike any other business that's out there. You bring something so unique to the table that nobody else has.
Yeah.
And by you conforming to the trends that are happening, whether that's with colors, fonts, just solely posting the funny reels because you don't want to show your authentic self, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yes.
Because you're
100%.
not relating to anyone at that point.
100%. This may be a little controversial, but I want to talk about it for a second,
Yeah.
especially for those who are getting it. If they're like, okay, we hear you, we're going to get our branding straight, like our logo, our colors, and all that. I have noticed too, a lot of people like really design their whole business on specific trends. And what I appreciate about like you and what you do is you kind of like stay away from trends, and you're very honest with our clients, and you create something that, you know, they may say, well, I want this. And you can be like, no, that's trendy. Why don't we do it this way so that you have it and it's timeless? And so what would you recommend to people who are about to redo their branding and stuff? Because when you're thinking about branding, you start seeing it, you start seeing trends, and then your mind goes there to like kind of think outside the box when it comes to creating their brand.
I think it goes back to your brand story
Yeah.
and the target audience that you're trying to reach, the goals that you have for your business. What is your why?
Yeah.
And understanding and actually writing all of that out, fleshing out your story, and understanding that that piece in and of itself is unique to you, you know? And once you have that, it's like, okay, what does this evoke?
Yes.
Is it really bright and fun and airy? Or maybe you will choose more of like a beachier font. I don't know. I don't want to really go into that side of things because it's going to confuse people. And when you confuse, you lose. Learn that from somebody. But you really need to focus on the emotion that you want to evoke.
Yeah.
Are you bright and bold? Are you
With words
soft
is
and
what
airy?
we're saying.
Well, and even with the fonts and the color palette
Yes.
that you choose.
I'm saying start with words first.
Oh, yeah,
Some
start with
people, when
words
it comes
first.
with branding and stuff, what I see people do is they go Pinterest or somewhere and they're like, I like this font and this color. I think starting with words is key. Like write down your values, write down the words that you want your brand. Like when you see Refine, what do you want people to think? Well, we want them to know it's beautiful and not beautiful. It's bold and powerful, right? And so I like starting with words.
Yeah, definitely. Start with words, start with writing your story, start with writing out your values, what you want people to feel when they work with you, the experience you want them to have. And then once you see all of that on paper, you may get a few different ideas of how to take it, or maybe you need to go look on some different inspirational sites. Maybe you need to take a walk to the grocery store, look at different packaging. I know that really helps sometimes.
Yeah.
Just get out there into the world and see what's already organically there, and that can help spark inspiration for your own brand in and of itself too.
Love it. All right, let's go. We got 2 more. All right, next one. Starting with the generic graphic or generic visuals, because it's easy to scroll through Canva's template library until you find a logo or IG template you like. But if it doesn't speak to your brand, audience, or strategy, my thing I've always told people with this one is please do not use stock photos. Please do not use stock photos. Please do not use stock photos. It's not original to you and it's not your personality. And the same thing with templates is like customize them to you and your brand. Don't just take a template, plug in a couple words and post it. Like you have to customize it to you, your brand, your words and everything. And so I see a ton of businesses, oh my gosh, especially in real estate, they use the same house picture. And I see it so much and it drives me nuts because I'm like, I see it everywhere. It looks like you didn't put enough thought into what you're putting out there and it drives me nuts.
Yeah. I think it's easy to press the easy button, ironically, and go onto Canva, search for logo templates and just plug your name in.
Yeah.
When you are doing that, again, you're doing a disservice to yourself and to your business and to your future clients because you're losing your brand strategy, you're losing your brand voice, you are losing a very important piece of your visual identity by just templatizing, if that's even a word, your business.
Templatizing.
Templatizing your business. Because it's not you.
No.
It's somebody else's just generic thoughts and slapping some elements together to make it look pretty.
We have the best thing for marketing now. If you're watching on YouTube, I am holding an iPhone. We are so capable of taking pictures every single day and then being our pictures that we took that are original. You don't have to be some fancy photographer. When you get to a certain point in your business, we recommend it, like getting photographers to help with branding photos. But like I would much rather somebody post an original photo from their phone than a stock photo. I've seen 1,000 times.
So, and yeah, that's a good point. Like when you are going and creating and thinking through your brand, right? We already talked about putting all the words down on paper. We talked about how to create a brand identity somewhat in Canva from a very basic viewpoint.
Yeah.
Now it's more so of like, okay, what other elements can I pull in that help me create a visual identity that isn't going to blend in with everything else that you see on Instagram? And that's where the stock photos come in. There is a way to do stock photos that isn't stocky.
Yes.
And it is finding different sites outside of just going. Please do not go on Pinterest and download a picture and use it.
You're not supposed to do that.
They are not for commercial use, just a PSA out there.
Yes.
You could get in very big trouble for doing that.
And I see a lot of people do that. That is not right to the people who took that. It's coming from someone who pays for original content.
Yeah.
It's not fun when people steal your photos.
Exactly. And so, I mean, there's so many different sites out there. One of the ones that we really love is called Dupe Photos.
If you're going to use any stock photo.
Yeah, if you're going to use stock photos. It's called Dupe Photos. It's DUPE Photos. And they're awesome because anything that's uploaded is literally taken from people off of their phones. And so it's original content. It's available for personal and commercial use. And it doesn't look stocky because it was taken by real people. It's not created by AI. It's not created by just, or it's not taken as like a very staged photo by a photographer for a magazine, you know, like it's real and people want that authenticity. They crave that authenticity from a brand. And so, definitely make sure that you use, if you use stock photos, make sure that you use it from sites that, one, they're available for commercial use. That's a huge point. But then two, but they really reflect your brand and the values that you want to evoke and like the visual imagery that matches with the idea of your brand, right? So for Refined, obviously very bright, bold, kind of in your face, but we also have a personal side to us. And that's something that we have really worked to intertwine into our visual identity. But our photos in and of itself are a lot of flash photography. They're very bright. They're blacks and whites and oranges and mixing with some of those creams in there. And the way that we have designed our photos, our visual identity in and of itself, is to help build upon the brand that we're creating and not detract from it.
Yes,
Because we want
1000%.
to make sure that the photos, the colors, the fonts that we use, they all work in unison and no one is fighting each other.
No. But it's just so funny, like how different marketing is now. Like the things that people have access to, like Dupe Photos, is that what's called?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so many like lifestyle photographers now and so many tools to use that if someone really just did a little bit of homework or research or maybe took a course, right?
Yeah.
If somebody did these things, they could easily learn and really like their marketing it'd be a game changer. It really would.
It would change the entire face of their business.
It would.
And it pays to put in the work in the front end of your business than switching it a year in
Yeah.
and having to redo so much more because you already have all of your digital stuff. You already have all of your print materials, all of that already created with this logo that you just kind of slapped together on Canva because you really didn't want to dedicate the time to creating something that actually spoke to who you are and the people that you are trying to attract.
Yeah.
And putting in the time in the front end will save you so much more time on the back end.
Yeah.
And if you're a couple years in business and you're relating to this and you're like, man, I love the idea of rebranding and I just don't have the time for this right now.
Or maybe the money too.
Or maybe the money. But I'm specifically speaking of like, if this is speaking to you and you're like, I really need to get my ducks in a row. Like I've been using a variety of different fonts. I've been using a variety of different colors. I say this all to say, if you need help with something, reach out and book a discovery call with us and even see if it's an option for you to work with us in one of our packages, because this is such a important piece of your business.
Yes.
It truly is the face of your business.
Yes, it really is.
Like
It's
you
so
are the
important.
mind, but your branding is the face.
Yes, 100%. That was good.
Thanks.
So hopefully we gave some really helpful tips for people on branding mistakes we've seen other business owners make and how to fix those. And a lot of these, I just want to remind people, a lot of these really don't even take money, right? Like there comes to a certain point in everybody's business where it does take money and you should invest in a custom brand identity. But a lot of these things you guys can be doing now and starting out with, and just with a little bit of homework, a little bit of research, listening to this podcast, you can go ahead and get some helpful tips to really change the face of your business. And that's what we're trying to help more people do, because it does make a huge, huge difference.
Yeah. Changing the face of your business, but also empowering you with the right tools to be able to help you start taking those steps. Even if it's just super simple of like, okay, yeah, I've never written out my why before.
Yeah.
Do it. Put it in front of you. Tape it up to your mirror. If you need to keep it, keep it in front of your face to know what you are fighting for, to know what that dream is. And so, yeah, I think that this is, hopefully you guys gleaned something off of this.
Yes.
And it was good.
Awesome. All right, let's end it.
All right. If y'all like this episode, please subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at Rise and Refine Podcast or at Refine Marketing _. Make sure you have that underscore because the people that have refined is taken. If you ever want to give that to us, please let us know. And DM us if you have any questions on this podcast or want to know anything else in regards to branding for your business. Y'all have a great Monday and have a great week.
Have a great week.